Several groups of Russian infantry tried to bypass a stronghold of the Ukrainian defenders near Bakhmut, but the border guard stopped the Wagner group soldiers' advance. To stop the maneuver of the Russian occupation forces, our fighters dragged the occupiers into a shooting battle and called for support. The enemy had to refuse to bypass a line and tried to capture the positions of a border unit. Border guards as part of a mortar unit and artillery gunners of the armed forces of Ukraine fired on the Russian soldiers. The line was defended, and the Ukrainian troops thwarted the enemy attempt to break through, the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine reported. As noted, the battle lasted for about 2 hours, and the Russian soldiers lost 12 people in their unsuccessful attack, 5 eliminated, and 7 were wounded. Earlier it was reported that the defense forces of Ukraine continue to defend Soldat. The Russian Wagner group is currently concentrating most of its efforts in the Bakhmut direction. The Ukrainian military filmed the moment of the attack on the camera of an unmanned aerial vehicle, which, more than likely, carried out the adjustment of the attack. On the footage shows the Russian soldiers approaching 2 burnt-out military vehicles before they are targeted by Ukrainian shelling. The footage was obtained from the 71st Separate Jaeger Brigade of the Airborne Assault Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, along with a statement saying, "Destroyed infantry of the occupiers." Jaggers of the 71st Separate Brigade of the Airborne Assault Forces demonstrated devastating shelling of the enemy DRG. The Russians tried in broad daylight to get closer to the positions of the Ukrainian army near Klishchivka, south of Bakhmut, but were immediately discovered by recon drones. The drones targeted the enemy infantry and the brigade mortar battery, as well as the attached self-propelled installation. They work together perfectly. Russians don't walk this path anymore. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, fighting around the eastern frontline city of Bakhmut remains intense, with both sides determined to hold their ground. To advance, Ukraine desperately needs tanks of the type the West has just announced it will send. Ukraine has repeatedly asked its Western allies to provide it with battle tanks to help it fight Russia. After months of pressure on the likes of Berlin and Washington to provide such hardware, however, that reluctance could be about to change, experts note, and some announcements could be made when Ukrainian and Western officials meet later this week in Germany to discuss the country's pressing military needs. Retired U.S. Lieutenant General Ben Hodges said that a weapon the United States will reportedly soon provide to Ukraine should cause panic within Russia's military ranks. While Ukraine has seen some notable victories on the battlefield, particularly with its counteroffensive in Kharkiv in northeast Ukraine that pushed Russian forces out of the region, the war has settled into an attritional rhythm as winter has set in, with Donetsk and the area around Bakhmut. Both sides are believed to be preparing for new, spring offensives, and there are fears Russia is about to mobilize thousands more men to fight in Ukraine after Russian President Vladimir Putin signaled that he has the stomach for a long war. Ukraine has repeatedly asked its allies for more weapons, and those requests have largely been answered. The US, UK, and NATO allies in Europe and beyond have sent Ukraine a wide range of military hardware, from ammunition and artillery, and air defense systems to infantry fighting vehicles. A supply of modern Western tanks would help undo one of Russia's critical advantages in this war, which has been an overwhelming advantage in terms of artillery fire. Ukraine right now has a resource dilemma between keeping forces in Bakhmut and relaunching and recalibrating forces for a counteroffensive. Samuel Ramoni, a geopolitical analyst and associate fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, noted. If tanks took longer to be delivered, Ukraine might decide to keep its forces in Bakhmut in order to fight Russia's advances on the city. Alternatively, they might scale back their presence in Bakhmut and cede some ground to the Russians in exchange for using this extra equipment to launch a faster, more comprehensive counteroffensive, Ramoni noted. Besides, the Ukrainian flag will return to the Donetsk airport, Donetsk, and other cities and villages of Ukrainian Donbass and Ukrinform reports. I am confident that the Ukrainian flag will return to the Donetsk airport, Donetsk, and other cities and villages of our Donbass and other temporarily occupied territories. Temporarily is the key word, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky said in his latest address. Meanwhile, a Kremlin official laid out a new condition that he said must be in place before Russia's war in Ukraine can end. During a press conference, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the conflict would only cease when Ukraine is no longer a military threat to Russia. Lavrov also said that his country's security concerns is one of the main reasons for the ongoing war, which began with Russia's invasion last February 24. Ukraine, like any other territory bordering Russia, of course, should not host military infrastructure that poses a direct threat to our country, Lavrov said when discussing what would be needed to end the war, according to the Russian state-controlled media outlet RT. He also reportedly added that the goals of the special military operation are not fictional, not plucked out of thin air, but are defined by fundamental, legitimate security interests of the Russian Federation. Lavrov's comments came as speculation continues that Russian President Vladimir Putin could soon initiate another mobilization of troops in order to mount a new offensive in Ukraine. A Tuesday assessment from the Institute for the Study of War think tank reported that recent signs in Russia suggest Putin might announce a second mobilization wave in the coming days, and Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu on the same day announced he will follow a Putin directive to conduct large-scale military reforms over the next few years. Shoigu said the reforms include overseeing military forces expanding to 1.5 million troops from the current 1.35 million.